Alright everybody, welcome in. My name is Joe and I told you we're going to do some puzzles. Let's do some puzzles. So let's hop over here to the puzzle of the day today and let's just run through it just like we kind of did in our training. So first thing to do is take stock of what we've got. So queen, rook, and a piece, queen, rook, and a piece. Okay, so we're about even in material. Now we look at the obvious. The obvious is, well, white just captured a pawn. Obvious would be to take back. Can we take back? Grab and grab. I think that's about the end of that line, more or less. So we trade rooks. Grab, grab. We trade rooks and I'm down a pawn. White has the advantage in that case, so that's not a tactical advantage for us. These are puzzles. We know there should be a tactical advantage for us, so let's keep looking. Next thing is to look at forcing lines. Okay, forcing lines. We know that that capture is not very forcing because you can just grab back. This move, let's say rook over here underneath the queen. That's always a forcing move because the rook is worth 5 points. The queen is obviously much more valuable. So the queen would have to move. Where could the queen move to? Well, the queen can just sidestep. The queen can pick up a pawn. Queen can move here. Okay, so the queen is definitely not trapped. So, okay, so this is not really that forcing because the queen is not trapped. All right, moving on to the next thing. Okay, so here's something. So here's something that, just something to always kind of, that we learn as we go through. The king has been castled. The king is sitting back here defending his pawns. But because that rook moved, there's nobody back here on the back row. White has back rank weaknesses. Can we take advantage of that? All right. If I could get a rook down on this back row, that's GG. So let's go back to this forcing line that we first looked at. Move the queen out of the way. Let's just assume the queen is going to grab that pawn. That doesn't work so well because, yeah, you dead end against this pawn. So rook over, queen over, dead end against this pawn, and the queen actually covers it. We kind of have to do forcing moves because now I'm looking at it some more. This rook is attacked twice. So captures, if we capture, we lose a queen. That's no bueno. All right, so what if we move the rook here? We still dead end into a pawn, and we really don't have anything to show for it. So now we're looking at how do we get our queen to the back rank. Now the only thing stopping us is our knight. Can we move our knight out of the way? And whenever you have a knight, and whenever you have some major pieces hanging around, there's usually forks involved. So let's see if we can fork one of these guys. So, all right, so there's already a maneuver that looks good. This one looks real good. And there's even this one up here. So these are my, these are my 3 candidate moves right off the top of my head. I was thinking something like that, but no, rook just captures and we're done. But if rook captures, we slide up. That could work. No it can't. No it can't. Duh. No it can't because this guy's here. Bishop's hanging out. All right, and that pretty much eliminates this one as well. So we can probably say goodbye to this maneuver. We're going to keep it in the back of our mind as one of our candidates. We're shuffling it down, right? If we can't find any other good candidate, we can always come back. So now we've got these 2 guys are in our brain as our candidates because moving this knight out of the way threatens checkmate. Game over, done. And if I just ignore this knight for a second, pretend this knight wasn't here, and evaluate this queen up, even the pieces sitting back here can't get back to block. It's literally checkmate in 1. So we've got to figure out a way to get rid of this knight. So here or here seem to be the most logical options. So let's start with this guy. So knight to e5 immediately attacks the queen. So it comes with tempo. First off, it's the main threat is this right here, is the queen to d1 checkmate. Oh, I'm seeing something else. Are you seeing it now too? If white's queen needs to defend the d1 square, white's queen can do it from the a4 square. So if I rotate my knight, attacking the queen but threatening checkmate, white can simply rotate their queen, getting it away from the knight and defending checkmate at the same time. I guess at the end of that line though, I have this. Because white can't grab back because of the threat still. So here, here, grab. Okay, so it's back on the menu, right? So it's back on the menu. Is it back on the menu? It's not that forcing. Excuse me. This comes with a threat of checkmate, but it doesn't actually do anything on its own. And if we move the knight here, this rook can slide down, pinning the queen. And if I take, they take with check, and I have to run away. So my king is safe and can run away, but that changes things. Here, here, and even if I grab, the queen can grab. And I'm down a rook in that scenario. So this may not be our best candidate. So let's keep looking. What was our other one? Oh yeah, b8. And I immediately see the benefit of b8. Because b8 no longer has the threat of check. If the knight is down here and the rook captures, I'm not in check and I have time to slide up and checkmate. So now let's talk about this one. This is a good candidate. So the queen has to go back to block, and then we just pick up. Either way, we pick up a rook. That's how we pick up the rook at the end of that line. We have a second attacker on that rook. Queen goes back to defend. We simply grab the rook for free. So that's looking to be a really good candidate right now. So now let's go and let's prove this candidate wrong. Let's try to break this candidate move. Now, even if we move and then my opponent, back rows themselves, we still have an attack on the queen when it's all said and done. So they'd be trading their queen for a knight. That's not a good trade. Yeah, trading the rook for a knight is much better. Even then, actually, it might be a straight up. It's actually a full rook. Actually, come to think of it. Knight, because since the rook can't, rook could capture, but doesn't do anything. They just lose the game immediately. Queen here. We grab with the rook. We grab the rook with the knight. They can't capture back because this queen has to stay on the diagonal to defend the checkmate square. So we would grab the full rook. They would move, and then we could slide the knight not straight back, probably here. Yeah, defended. Yeah, we probably have to rotate the knight back to safety somewhere, but it does have a safety square. And you know what? If we gave them the knight back, it's not the end of the world. We're still up in exchange. But okay, So here we are. We're too far into this puzzle. This took way too long, but that's okay. We haven't quite hit the 10-minute mark yet, so we're good. So now let's go with our candidate move, and the last thing we do is we just quickly scan the board to see if there's anything that we missed. Make sure there's no extra checkmates that I missed. No, I'm going to go with my candidate. Did not see that coming. We just take a queen. Oh, all right, I saw the engine on. I was like, what? But I still have the engine on from the last time I was playing puzzles. They pick up the rook at the end of that line. Okay. And so I have to kind of guard the knight. I was wondering why they would give up a full queen, right? Giving up a full queen is not the same as giving up a full rook. But they're giving up a queen for a rook, which is only a 4-point swing, right? 5 points for a rook, 9 for a queen, so they're only down 4 points of material. And then even then, Black's queen has to keep an eye on their knight to not accidentally drop the knight at the same time. So maybe something like this to get out from the pin, move the king out of the way, and then finally get the knight. So, you know, the knight is kind of out of the game for a little bit, but obviously there's still this threat. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. All right, puzzle number 2, and we're going to go a little bit faster now that we're done kind of talking them out. Take stock here. 2 rooks, a piece, and a queen. 2 rooks, a queen, and a piece. Okay, so we're about even. The queen just moved here, so what's our obvious thing? Well, the obvious thing is to grab that, but the queen just grabs back. Not too great. I see potential back rank issues, so let's put that on our plate for a second. Is there any way to take advantage of the back rank issues? Capture. Capture. We would need a third one. We would need a third capture in here. So can we get this rook involved? No, it doesn't look like it. It's too slow. Capture. Capture. Here. Capture. Capture. And the queen does not have access to this. Ooh, this is starting to look good. Hang on a second. This is starting to look good. So rook here, but that's a slow move. And realistically, what's stopping them from just trading? So rook here, capture, capture back. I don't really have a way to continue the attack. They still have defense on their back row. Capture, capture. Yeah, I don't quite have enough. Okay. All right. Let's move on to some more forcing lines. Right? We're just trying the forcing lines now. So capture forces the king up. Not forces. Really, the king could go either way. But the king grabs. We do not have any follow-up. Because they can just block with the queen. Then I can grab here. But then they take a rook for free. No, I don't like that either. All right, so this one's getting a little tougher. If I were playing this over the board, you know, maybe I'd be looking at a rook lift. That doesn't work either because of the bishop. Okay, so maybe start here and then rook lift. Right, shift the queen, or shift really the bishop out of here. So it's a queen, and then I've got a rook lift where he could trade his queen for my rook, and I'd be happy to do that. All right, do we have any knight forks? That's always another thing to look for, knight forks. Not really. Ah. Aha. Aha, aha, aha. What about this? Speaking of forks, so now that we have an alignment issue and the rook up, is attacking both the queen and the bishop, right? Undefended or under-defended pieces is a huge theme that we want to take advantage of. So notice if the queen takes, we take a queen, that's a good trade for us. The queen's going to have to move. Then we have two attackers. We have the knight and the rook attackers, and my opponent could realistically, by moving the queen, they could really only ever have one defender on it. That's looking like a good candidate. Let's quickly glance through to see what else my opponent has, because this is not so forcing, right? There's no check here, so my opponent does not have to immediately respond to that. So danger levels. Does my opponent have something? Well, he could throw a check in. I could grab. I could grab any number of ways. So if he threw a check in, grab back, and then move the queen to safety, I'm still up a piece. He's messed up my king side, but that's okay. Now the question is, can the rooks come over and deal more damage? Not really, because let's see, even if I capture with the king, I can always just slide back, right? Because my rook will be here, so the queen can't come over and do anything. So I think we're good. So in the last, what, 2 to 3 minutes, we've kind of evaluated this whole board position, and I think we've picked our candidate. So this is our candidate. Now, what can black do? Black is most likely going to move the queen either here, here, or here. And I'm thinking this is probably the least likely. I'm thinking it's going to be one of these two. And then we can grab with the... no, of course the queen's not going to come here. Not in line of the rook. So the queen's either going to go here or here. And then I'm going to be obviously grabbing with the knight, so that leaves the queen here to then have to run over an escape route. So yeah, so my guess is I'm going to go here, the queen's going to go there, grab, and then the queen's going to run across. That looks to be a pretty good candidate series. Did not see that coming. Did not see that coming, did we? So instead of dropping a full piece, my opponent decided to exchange a queen for a rook. Now, I don't quite understand that. So if I'm doing this by myself, why not do it this way? Because he doesn't like the passed pawn, I guess. You can see these three here are so... Yeah, here's the third most. They're very similar. Yeah, and in that case, the engine says it's similar depending on capture back with the queen or the king. I'm surprised the queen didn't move. Oh, right. See? Because of that checkmate pattern. We've got to learn our checkmate patterns, right? There's a forced checkmate because this capture is a protected capture. Yeah, okay. So this is why we look at these things when we don't understand them. Well, I would never have guessed that my opponent's going to sacrifice there, but that saves the checkmate, and my opponent lives to fight again. They're down material, but they can continue this game at least. All right, let's do another one. I lost track. Was that 1, 2, 3? Where are we? Okay, so we are the black pieces. We've got a queen, we've got a rook, and a piece. A queen and 2 pieces. Okay, so black is up in material. Queen and a piece, queen and a piece. Black has got a rook for a bishop. But boy, there is a discrepancy in pawns, isn't there? 5 to 2. All right, so weird position. white is attacking, right? There's 2 attackers in this knight, so my first thought is let's move the knight. So let's take a moment to look at where some good moves for the knight would be. With an attack on the queen. Queen has to move somewhere. And then we've got check. The king can move. Check. No, that's covered. All right. What else could the knight do? Not really anything exciting other than that. That seemed to be the most exciting was this one. Okay, so let's keep that candidate in our mind. That's our obvious one. Now let's look at forcing moves. So forcing moves are going to be checks. Check. The king can go to any of these squares, so the king can go this way. Do I have follow-up? Not really, because that's covered again. All right, so check. Oh, I see it. Do you see it? Check. And we're immediately threatening an undefended piece. All right, now this is technically sort of loosely defended because of this skewer, right? But the dark square bishop is completely undefended. So check, pick up a bishop. So now that is our candidate move. Now let's look at any other possible forcing options. If we slide the bishop, or if we slide the rook out to try to threaten this bishop, then the bishop will just pick up the knight. Honky dory. Are there any other fun checks? Not really. All right, so we're going back to our candidate now. This is our candidate move. Check, pick up this bishop. And now the last thing we do is we look for those odd sacrifices. Check. He's not in time. He doesn't have this check in time. So let's go for it. So check. I didn't even think about that. Didn't even think about that. See, these are things that I miss. Of course, white can block with the bishop. So now I have to pause and reevaluate what I was doing. Now the queen up doesn't work because capture, and they're no longer pinned. This is an option, right? Under defended. And then we end up over defending our knight in the process. So that's probably, and plus it comes with check. Yeah, let's go for it. Yep, and that was it. So that's how we do the puzzles. So yeah, I completely missed that obviously they can block. All right, let's try one more. Now this is gonna be our last puzzle for now. Don't spam a million of these, right? Do a handful, 3, 4, 5 puzzles, and that's it. Take your time with them, try to figure them out, try to understand them, try to recognize what you missed. Okay, so here we are in endgame. We're the white pieces. We each have a rook. We each have 2 pawns. This is an endgame. This isn't an endgame we really would like to win, but it's very equal right now. These are the tough ones. Now, I want my king to be here so that I can attack both of these pawns. Throw a check in and then maybe get behind this guy. And he doesn't see check. He moves. I go behind this one. And then his rook would have to come all the way out here, giving me an option to pick up this pawn. So that's candidate move number 1 right there. There it is. There's our candidate. Now let's look for a better move. Just because you have a good move, look for a better one. Can we threaten the rook? Well, no, because if we push this pawn, then this becomes undefended. And undefended with check, and he ends up picking up both pawns, right? Capture with check, and then he captures, picks up both pawns, and I'm lost. Can I try to trap his rook? Here's a forcing line. He captures, I capture. The king goes here, I go here. The king goes here, I go here. He pushes, but he blockades into my pawns. I win that. So now I've got a second candidate. And here is where I'm telling you I don't know. I don't know enough about endgames to decide which is the correct course of action. I legitimately do not know endgames well enough. Is this a situation where we should trade off rooks? I don't know. Is this a situation where picking up this outside pawn is great, even though it means my opponent keeps their rook on the table? I don't know. If I allow my opponent to keep their rook on the table, is that going to cause me so many problems from all the checks on the backside, right? Because I go here, and then I rotate my rook, and then he's going to have to come all the way out here. Because notice he can't defend because my pawn is there. So check, I come here. If he just stays the rook here and brings his king into the game, I grab. Well, actually, no, he'd already be up here. Check, he moves up. Over here, he moves over, grabs. Now this comes with check, and all of a sudden I'm in a world of hurt. I think it's holdable, but I don't know. But then the next question is, if I go for this trade, am I allowing my opponent's king to get into a position that can stalemate the game? I don't know. I legitimately do not know how these endgames work. So, I have two candidate moves. 1 and 2. I'm just going to flip a coin, realistically. If I'm playing this over the board, this is the one I'm leaning towards. So that's the one that I'm going to play because that's what I would play over the board. Now, logic then tells me that realistically the engine wants me to do this one. This is probably the engine better move because of some nuance with the kings where I can get here and my opponent can't. I don't know. But this is what I'm going for. And yep, that's not the move. Yep. So I told you, the engine loves those. I don't know these endgames well enough. I don't know these nuances of how to get your king in a position. I know that I want my king here. I know that that getting my king to this back pawn means that I control both of those pawns. I have something now. This doesn't work if there's no pawns down here. If my pawns were on the other side of the board, this doesn't work because as soon as I go behind, he pushes, creates a gap. I can never chase that pawn down, and he promotes before I ever get there. But because I have a wall of pawns blocking his wall of pawns, the king is the deciding factor, and it has something to do with that. But I don't know it. And so that's where my studying has to come from, so I'm going to have to do some more studying. But I called it, didn't I? That over the board, I would go for the other move order. And if we look at it, we're to a draw. And look, all of these moves are a draw. Because the king is there in time to defend this pawn. This rook will create a wall that I can't get through. So I'll have to either give up my rook completely to stop this pawn, which means my opponent has a full rook, which a rook plus a king is checkmate. Granted, I would have passed pawns, but my opponent's king being in the way, plus the rook, I don't know enough about this, but the engine says it's a draw. So my instincts were wrong in this case, and I should have gone and should have fought the urge and do the engine line. But, oh well, that's how it goes. So yeah, that's not the correct move. This is, because like I said, it almost forces the opponent to, I mean, there's really no good move. Forces the opponent to trade, and with best play, White's king gets there in time to that square, and this wall of pawns is enough to keep. And notice this stops him. So my king blocks these off, the pawn blocks that off, the king has to move from the defense, and now you have connected passed pawns, and you can see the engine says it's plus 70, which is essentially a goner, game over. Anything more than like plus 5 or 6 is even an end game that I can win, right? Plus 2 or 3, yeah, I'm shaky on. Plus 4, 5, 6, I can usually convert those. Anything more than plus 6 is got to be an automatic at this point in time. And so a plus 70, so this is a game over. But well, anyway, this is puzzles, right? These are things that we do, and I know where my weaknesses lie. I know that my weaknesses are end games, but this is helping me learn. This is helping me get better, and we'll see that in some of the games we play. All right, guys, I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.